give you the best suite if you can afford the balance, joked Kevin Martinez, manager of the Grand Plaza Hotel, as he looked down at a 12-year-old boy standing in the marble lobby. The words echoed through the golden hall, turning heads. Guests in elegant clothes slowed their steps to watch what looked like a scene unfolding in a movie. The boy held a faded backpack and an old phone. His sneakers were worn thin, an odd contrast against the shining floor of the five-star hotel. His name was David Washington, and he never imagined that what started as a simple reservation would become one of the most humiliating moments of his young life. "Sir, I have a reservation," David said steadily, sliding a folded paper across the counter. His voice was calm, but his eyes showed a depth beyond his years, like someone who had already faced storms much greater than mockery. Kevin picked up the paper with 2 fingers, as if it were something unpleasant. "A presidential suite for a week. Kid, do you know what that costs? $40,000. He waved the paper like a trophy. "Where did you get this? Did you copy it from another guest?" Whispering filled the lobby. A woman in a fur coat leaned toward her husband. A businessman paused his phone call. Even the doorman stopped polishing the brass handles. David drew a slow breath, his fists tightening inside his pockets. "I didn't copy anything. The reservation is real." His calm tone only fueled Kevin's irritation, as if the boy knew something no one else did. "Real?" Kevin laughed, turning to his staff. "Hey, check this out. We've got a little entrepreneur here. I bet he doesn't even have a credit card." Laughter rippled across the room. 3 days earlier, David had received a call that changed everything. The lawyer's voice still echoed in his mind. "David, there's something about your inheritance. Something your grandfather never told anyone." Back in the lobby, Kevin continued his show. 12 years old, alone, wanting the best suite in the building? "What's next? You'll tell me your father's a billionaire?" Silence followed. David could feel every gaze judging his clothes, his old backpack, his skin. Yet behind his calm eyes shone something the manager couldn't read. The quiet strength of someone who knows timing is everything. He stood tall, unshaken, as if he understood that some storms exist only to clear the sky that follows. If stories like this move you about courage, dignity, and the power to rise above, make sure to subscribe for the next chapter, because what happened that afternoon would soon turn into a moment the entire hotel would remember forever. Kevin Martinez was still enjoying himself. 15 years at the Grand Plaza had made him an expert at spotting fakes. David Washington, with his plain clothes and steady voice, seemed the perfect target. "Front desk, come over here," Kevin shouted to his staff. "We've got a kid businessman asking for the presidential suite." Laughter followed again. "Kid," Kevin said mockingly, "do you even know where the bathroom is in your own house?" A few guests gasped. Others chuckled, but David didn't flinch. His expression changed, not anger, but a calm precision that Kevin mistook for fear. "Mr. Martinez," David said, reading the manager's badge, "may I speak with your supervisor?" Kevin laughed louder. "My supervisor? Kid, I am the supervisor. This is my house. And you," he pointed, "you don't belong here." What Kevin didn't know was that David had faced far worse than ridicule. Orphaned at 7, raised by his grandfather. A janitor who cleaned buildings, most people never noticed. David learned that true dignity doesn't come from what you own, but from how you stand when others try to bring you down. 3 days earlier, when the lawyer first called about a mysterious inheritance left by someone David had never even heard of, his first reaction was doubt. "Your biological grandfather, Mr. Washington, was a very private man," the lawyer explained. "He left specific instructions. This information could only be revealed once you turn 12. The memory faded as the sound of Kevin's palms clapping loudly snapped David back to the present. "Attention, everyone," Kevin called out theatrically. "Our young guest here is about to explain how he plans to pay $40,000 for a week's stay." He leaned in close, his face just inches from David's. "What's your plan, kid? Sell lemonade in the lobby?" Laughter filled the hall again. David's hands stayed in his pockets, steady. Inside one of them, he held a matte black card that Kevin assumed was nothing more than a bus pass. when in reality, it was something that would turn this entire scene upside down. "Mr. Martinez," David said quietly, his voice calm and controlled, "can I ask you something simple? Do you believe appearances always show who a person really is?" Kevin blinked, caught off guard by the question's tone. "What are you talking about?" "Don't play games, kid." "It's an honest question," David continued, "because when I look at you, I see a man wearing a company uniform, standing behind someone else's counter, yet acting as if he owns the entire building." The laughter stopped instantly. Kevin froze, color rising in his cheeks. The boy's words had landed like a strike to his pride. "Watch your mouth," Kevin snapped, his showmanship fading into real anger. "I'm calling security. You'll be escorted out immediately." David nodded slowly, unbothered. "That's fine, Mr. Martinez. But before you do that, would you like to process my reservation? Or keep making assumptions about me?" Kevin's ego took over. "You know what? Let's make this interesting," he said, his tone sharp. "If you can actually pay for that suite, I'll personally carry your bags upstairs. But when I prove you're bluffing, you'll be banned from every hotel in this city. Deal?" Gasps rippled through the lobby. It sounded like an official challenge. David smiled for the first time since stepping through those doors. It wasn't the smile of a child. It was quiet, unsettling confidence. "Perfect," he said. "Then let's verify it right now." Every insult Kevin had thrown only fueled a strength that came from deep within the boy, the kind of strength born from injustice, not comfort. What the manager didn't realize was that every moment of mockery was carving out his own downfall. Sometimes the biggest storms start right when the sky seems calm. David slowly pulled his hand from his pocket and placed the black card on the marble counter. The surface of the card seemed to absorb the light, its texture flawless, its edges sharp. Kevin took one look and laughed again. "Really? A black plastic card?" He chuckled, clapping his hands dramatically. "What is this? Arts and crafts? Did you print this at home?" He turned to the amused crowd. "Folks, look at this pure creativity." But a few employees behind the counter had stopped smiling. Lisa, the night supervisor with 20 years in luxury service, frowned. She recognized that card immediately. Something about it set off an alarm in her memory. "Kevin," she whispered softly, but he was too wrapped up in his mockery to notice. David didn't respond. He just slid the card toward Lisa. "Miss, could you please run this card through the system?" he asked calmly, ignoring Kevin completely. Kevin intercepted it before Lisa could move. No, I'm the manager here. I'll handle this little prank myself." He turned the card over dismissively. "There's not even a bank logo on it. Amateur move." He smirked, still unaware that this particular type of card wasn't supposed to have any logo, because only a handful of elite institutions around the world issued it. Lisa's eyes widened slightly as she realized what Kevin was holding. But by the time she tried to warn him, the damage was already done. "You know what we're going to do?" Kevin announced grandly, raising his voice so everyone in the lobby could hear. "I'll run this little card through the system right here, in front of everyone, and put an end to this charade once and for all." He lifted the black card high like a trophy. "And when it declines, because it will, this little prankster will be escorted out by security." David simply nodded. "Perfect. But before you do that, may I make a quick phone call?" Kevin burst out laughing. "Who are you going to call, kid? Your babysitter? Maybe to tell her you'll be late for school?" "Actually," David said, calmly taking his old cell phone from his pocket, "my lawyer." The word made a few guests raise their eyebrows. Kevin rolled his eyes. "A lawyer? A 12-year-old with a lawyer? Sure. Why not call Santa Claus while you're at it?" David dialed a number and placed the phone on speaker for everyone to hear. After 2 rings, a deep professional voice answered. "Morrison and Associates. Dr. Richard Morrison speaking." "Dr. Morrison," David said evenly, "this is David Washington. I'm at the Grand Plaza Hotel and would like you to confirm the details of the account you opened in my name." "David!" The lawyer's tone immediately warmed. "Of course, young man. Is everything going smoothly at the hotel? Are you being treated properly?" Kevin frowned. The respect in the man's voice was unsettling. Still, he forced a smirk. Nicely rehearsed, he muttered to his colleagues. Probably a friend pretending. Dr. Morrison, David continued, his tone composed, could you please remind everyone here what amount was deposited into the account yesterday? There was a short pause. Then the lawyer spoke clearly, every word echoing through the silent lobby. Certainly. An initial deposit of $15 million was made, coming from the testamentary inheritance your late grandfather, Jonathan Washington, left exclusively for you. The remaining assets, properties and investments, are in the process of transfer. The silence that followed was absolute. Even the background music seemed to fade. Kevin's expression drained of color. Lisa let out a faint gasp. Guests who had been watching with amusement now stood frozen, phones halfway to their pockets. Thank you, Dr. Morrison, David said calmly. The manager here was questioning the legitimacy of my reservation. The lawyer's tone hardened. Questioning? David, are you being treated disrespectfully? I should remind you that your family maintains significant partnerships in the hospitality industry. If the management is failing to uphold standards, I'll ensure the matter is addressed immediately. Kevin's throat went dry. The black card in his hand suddenly felt as heavy as stone. David ended the call, then looked straight at him. Now, Mr. Martinez, he said softly, shall we run the card through the system? I'm sure you're as curious as everyone else to see the result. Kevin looked around and saw no more smiles, only expectant eyes fixed on him. Lisa stepped closer, her voice low and urgent. Kevin, she whispered, I recognize that card. It's an exclusive black card from Zurich International Private Bank. They issue them only to clients with balances over $10 million. But it was too late. Kevin's pride wouldn't let him back down now. His hands trembled visibly as he turned toward the payment terminal. The black card gleamed faintly under the lights, every reflection feeling like judgment. The entire lobby had turned into a silent stage. Even the ticking of a nearby clock seemed louder than his shaky breathing. Let's get this over with, Kevin muttered, his voice cracking as he tried to reclaim a trace of confidence. Lisa stayed close, sensing disaster. Her 2 decades in luxury hotels told her exactly what was about to happen, and how irreversible it would be. Kevin, she said one last time, quietly but firmly, please, let me check the card. But Kevin, blinded by ego and fear, pushed the card into the reader himself. I've got more experience with Kevin snapped, cutting Lisa off mid-sentence. But his voice cracked halfway through the word. I said I'll handle it, and I will. He jammed the black card into the payment terminal with unnecessary force, as if he wanted to break both the card and the machine. David didn't move. His calm was almost unsettling, like a conductor waiting for the perfect cue before the orchestra's final note. There was no anger in his eyes, only quiet certainty. He already knew what was about to happen. The terminal beeped. Kevin typed the amount 40,000, his trembling hands hitting the wrong keys twice before finally entering it correctly. The machine processed. Seconds stretched into an eternity. Then, beep, flash, message displayed. Transaction approved, available balance, 50 on 247.91. 33, Kevin blinked. Once, twice. 15 million, he whispered, the color draining from his face. That can't be right. That must be a system error. Lisa leaned over his shoulder, her breath catching when she saw the digits on the screen. Oh my! Kevin, do you realize what you've just done? She murmured, but Kevin shook his head violently. Impossible. He's a child. That kind of balance. No, it has to be fake. Some kind of trick. David's voice sliced through the rising panic. Would you like to check again, Mr. Martinez? Or perhaps call Zurich International Private Bank to confirm the account? The name alone made Kevin's throat tighten. Everyone in hospitality knew that Zurich International handled only ultra-exclusive clients, those with 8-figure portfolios and private teams of advisors. Lisa closed her eyes. She didn't need to see what came next to know that Kevin's career had just ended. Whispering spread through the lobby like wildfire. 15 million, someone muttered. That poor boy. The manager humiliated him, another guest whispered. Even the doorman, still holding the polished handle of the golden door, froze. Kevin tried to salvage what was left of his dignity. Listen, kid David, I didn't know. I mean, if I had realized that you were rich, David finished for him, his tone calm but sharp. So you only treat people with respect when they have money? The question hung in the air like a verdict. Kevin opened his mouth, but no sound came out. The same man who had laughed minutes earlier now stood wordless, pale and shaking. Mr. Martinez, David said evenly, you promised to carry my bags if I could pay for the suite. Do you plan to keep your word? The lobby went utterly still. Guests stared. Employees looked away in embarrassment. Even Kevin's co-workers quietly stepped back, distancing themselves from him like witnesses at a disaster scene. I can explain, Kevin stammered. It was all a misunderstanding. I never meant what? David asked, stepping forward slightly. Never meant to mock me in front of everyone? Never meant to turn a guest into entertainment? Never meant to judge someone because of how they look? Each sentence hit like a hammer, breaking apart every layer of arrogance Kevin had built over the years. Moments ago, he had ruled the lobby. Now he looked small, desperate, and defeated. David quietly pulled out his phone again. Dr. Morrison, he said, pressing the speakerphone, may I bother you one more time? Of course, David, came the lawyer's calm reply. How did the check-in go? Quite an experience, David said, his gaze locked on Kevin. The manager here, Mr. Kevin Martinez, accused me of fraud, mocked my age, and turned my check-in into a public spectacle. I'd appreciate your professional opinion. There was a pause. When Dr. Morrison spoke again, his tone was icy and precise. David, that behavior qualifies as serious misconduct and public humiliation. Both the manager and the hotel could face significant legal consequences. And considering the scale of your family's assets, that process could be extensive. Kevin's knees nearly gave out, his mind filled with the words lawsuits, termination, ruined reputation. Thank you, Dr. Morrison, David said softly. Could you please inform the general manager of the Grand Plaza that I'd like to discuss how his staff treats guests who make $40,000 reservations? Around him, the crowd said nothing. There was only the sound of the lobby's soft music returning, a melody that somehow made Kevin's silence even louder. And David, Dr. Morrison continued, his voice calm but edged with gravity, considering the seriousness of what happened, it might be appropriate to alert the local media. Stories of discrimination in elite establishments tend to attract significant attention. Kevin finally understood. The 12-year-old standing before him wasn't just wealthy. He had influence, connections, and something far more dangerous. A plan. His humiliation wouldn't be quiet. It would be public, permanent, and unforgettable. Please. Kevin's voice broke as he spoke, trembling. Please, I beg you. I have a family. Children. I can't lose my job. It was a mistake. I swear it was just a mistake. David ended the call and looked at him with calm disappointment. Not anger, just quiet pity. Mr. Martinez, he said, his voice steady. When you laughed at me, did you think about my family? When you accused me of theft, did you consider how that would feel? When you turned me into a joke, did you care about the damage your words could cause? Kevin lowered his head. There was no answer that could save him. Just then, the elevator doors opened with a sharp chime. A tall man in a flawless suit strode out. James Richardson, the general manager of the Grand Plaza. His face was tight with fury. Martinez, my office, now. His voice rolled through the lobby like thunder. Then turning toward David, his tone softened instantly. Mr. Washington, please accept my sincerest apologies. What happened here is unacceptable, and there will be immediate consequences. Kevin looked at David one last time, eyes pleading for forgiveness that would never come. David simply nodded, not cruelly, but with the quiet finality of a judge delivering a fair verdict. As Kevin was escorted away, the man who once ruled the lobby now looked small, carrying only the weight of his own arrogance. His footsteps echoed until the elevator swallowed them, a sound that marked the end of his career. In the middle of the marble lobby, David stood calm and composed, not as a child, but as a symbol of something far greater. That day, he proved that true power doesn't come from shouting or wealth or revenge. It comes from dignity, from standing firm while the arrogance of others collapses under its own weight. 3 hours later, David Washington walked through the corridors of the Grand Plaza. The same staff who had once laughed now stepped aside respectfully. The air itself seemed different, heavier with awareness. James Richardson walked beside him, carrying David's worn backpack as if it were something priceless. "Mr. Washington," he said softly, opening the doors to the presidential suite, "please enjoy our hospitality for the duration of your stay, and once again, our deepest apologies." The suite was breathtaking, floor-to-ceiling windows, a grand piano, a dining hall for 12. David nodded, calm and self-possessed, as if he had always belonged in that space. "Thank you, Mr. Richardson. I only hope this becomes a lesson your entire team remembers." Downstairs, Kevin Martinez was packing his things under the watchful eyes of security. His dismissal was immediate, his access revoked, his reputation shattered. "Can you believe he laughed at that boy?" whispered one receptionist. "Unbelievable. And now look." What Kevin didn't know was that his downfall had only just begun. Dr. Morrison had kept his promise. Local journalists already had the full account of what happened that afternoon, a story that would soon spread beyond the hotel's walls. The name Kevin Martinez would become a cautionary tale in the hospitality world, a reminder that arrogance has consequences. A few days later, Lisa, temporarily promoted to his position, knocked on the door of the presidential suite. "Mr. Washington," she said softly, "there are reporters downstairs asking for a comment. How would you like to respond?" David stood by the window, overlooking the glittering city. "Tell them," he said quietly, "that I have nothing to add. This isn't a story about revenge. It's about remembering that dignity doesn't come from a bank account." His name soon spread across the industry, not as a recommendation, but as a warning. Kevin Martinez now worked behind the counter of a small snack bar, earning in a month what David might spend on a single dinner. 3 months later, David used part of his inheritance to establish a foundation dedicated to helping underprivileged children access education and confidence-building programs. "I want other kids to never go through what I did," he told Dr. Morrison, "but if they ever do, I want them to remember that their worth doesn't depend on what any ignorant adult says about them." What began as a simple hotel reservation had become a national lesson, a story about prejudice, dignity, and the quiet strength found in those who refuse to be broken by humiliation. Kevin learned, far too late, that judging others by their appearance can cost you everything you've built. And David discovered that real wealth isn't measured by what you own, but by how you stand when the world tries to make you feel small. The story of a 12-year-old boy who faced arrogance with calm and grace became a reminder that some moments define not just who we are, but who we choose to become when the next storm arrives. If this story moved you, leave a comment below. What would you have done in David's place? And don't forget to subscribe for more stories that prove real power doesn't shout. It stands tall in silence.